Okay, we're coming down to the wire here. I'm so glad I have some viewers, listeners, companions, students. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's um, it's delightful. It's inspiring to me. Thank you. So it's 8 o'clock, and welcome to the Red Room. I'm so happy that you tuned in tonight. It's part 2 of 3 on emotional intelligence. And last week, we looked at part 1, which is know your heart. You want to know your own emotions. You want to be able to understand yourself. Tonight, it's motivate yourself, which means now that you know yourself, motivate yourself with your emotions in a constructive way. And then next week, we'll finish it by talking about how emotional intelligence is critical to connecting with others. And of course, we talked about some of that last week, and we certainly will this week. And please, anytime you're interested in asking a question or for clarification, chime right in. Type me a question. That's always inspiring to me. It means that you're engaged and this is meaningful. So thanks a lot. All right, last week your handout was that questionnaire. And that questionnaire has 20 components of emotional intelligence. And we looked at the know yourself, know your heart. This week we'll look at the ones that have to do with motivating yourself. And there are 7 of them. There is 1, 6, 8, 10, 15, 18, and 20 are parts of emotional intelligence quotients where we know how to motivate ourselves. And of course, motivating ourselves means that we not only know ourselves and we're passionate about something, but we are able to express ourselves and to take action based on those things that we care about. Is this being recorded? That's my sweetie. Yes, it is. So motivating yourself, your handout for tonight is 7 pages. I couldn't contain myself. And there's an introductory page that talks about the definition of emotional intelligence that I shared with you last week. That emotional intelligence is a skill, not a trait. Skills can be learned. Emotional intelligence is the ability to sense, understand, and effectively apply the power of acumen of emotions, which expertise of emotions, as a source of human energy. Got lots of energy, aliveness, you're not tired or depressed. Influence, where you influence yourself and you influence others. You influence the world for the good. You trust. You're not suspicious or doubting, and yet your trust radius is appropriate, where you're not naive and just trust everybody without discernment. You're creative. You're very connected with your passion and your sense of wanting to invent, create, build, contribute in some way. And information. Emotional intelligence, when we listen to our emotions or our feelings, we know immediately what it is that we care about. Sometimes we're not sure why or how we care about it, but if you have an emotional response, you're attached to whatever it is that you're perceiving or experiencing. So we've got today this quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, and most of us just love this guy. He's so articulate and he has such depth and meaning to what he says. This is one of those things that reminds us about usually what we believe in, what we can invest in. To laugh often and love much. To win the respect of intelligent persons and the affection of children, to earn the approbation of honest citizens, approbation, the respect, the support of honest citizens, and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to give of oneself, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to have played and laughed with enthusiasm and sung with exultation, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. That is to have succeeded. And those successes that he's describing in that quote are all connected with our emotional intelligence and how we know ourselves, handle ourselves, motivate ourselves, and connect with the world and others around us. Wendy, is that you, Wendy? I'm so glad you're here. So last week, I shared the 7 superordinate emotions with you, and this from today is my model that shows the emotions. Excuse me. Shows how you experience emotions as feelings in the body. So those emotions, as you can see, surprise, fear, awe, disgust, shame and guilt, joy, and pain, those are all emotions. Feelings are how we experience them sensorially in our body. Because notice we experience pain, as I said last week, in the throat and around the chest. All of the emotions affect us physically as well as in the sense of being quickened with care, with concern, with happiness. So I wanted to share that with you tonight. I'm not going to go over it. I just wanted you to have it because we went through it quite extensively last week. This here, the next page is on emotional manipulation. And the little objectives I had for us tonight: tantrums, toxic negativity, and self-soothing. Tantrums are people who consider themselves victims. They're not energetic, they're not emotionally intelligent, and they pour their energy down the drain with emotionalism rather than using their emotions, and we'll talk specifically about that. How many emotions there are, as we just said, 7, and we talked about the difference between emotions and feelings. How victim strategies are defense patterns expressed as tantrums, and some tantrums are very loud, some tantrums are very soft. We'll look at that. And then the last one, how did the user-taker and the pleaser-giver get locked in relationships? That'll be very interesting to you. And obviously that is not only motivating yourself in terms of how to be emotionally intelligent, but then connecting us with the piece next week that's about our relationships. So let me move down here. Good. Okay. I wanted to remind you that if remember all the emotions in the model, anger is not there because I don't consider anger an emotion. It's a flight or flight response that comes from the reptile brain. It's a primitive response that has to do with action and action only, going towards pleasure, away from pain. Just the movement rather than the caring or the thinking. And anger, when it's used by intelligent people, you don't know that they're angry, except for you can feel a little that they're a little tense, they're a little more focused, and they're very intent on achieving something. So that's what an emotionally intelligent person does when they're angry. It doesn't come out as a tantrum. So let's go to the tantrums page. And that's this one right here, this kind of dusty pink star. It says at the top, emotional manipulation, 5 controlling defense patterns. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't have much use for people who try to manipulate. That says they want to make you do what they want you to do. And I rather respect people, and I can influence them, I can ask them, I can offer them, rewards or consequences, whatever it is. But I'm not going to try to fool them, trick them, seduce them. Well, sometimes we do a little seduction, but it's not to take advantage of somebody or try to control them or push them around and make them do what you want them to do. And I think of manipulation is not completely honest. It's kind of putting on a mask to get somebody to do what you want them to do, rather than to have an adult interaction and an agreement about what's going to happen. So these controlling defense patterns, I call them games people play. And I don't know about you, but I don't like people who play games. It feels dishonest, and I don't like to be jerked around or experience the power and control of somebody else trying to control or have power over me. And I don't want to do that to anyone, and most of us who are emotionally intelligent don't want to waste our time doing that. We want to be honest and open and upfront and look for solutions. So look at this. And then your second page is the what to do instead. So I'm thinking, let's go through it this way, where we're looking at the emotional manipulation page, and then we're looking at the second page, which is what we want to do instead of being manipulative. So let's look at this little paragraph at the top. Games people play. Those who approach difficulties with the need to control, avoid accountability or guilt, want to protect themselves, and or are taken over by their feelings, may use these defensive roles. And of course, there are other scenarios as well. I was just listing some of the ones that we're probably familiar with. As time goes on, it can become manipulative with various detriments to relationships. The other person may see it as game playing, irresponsible, untrustworthy, disrespectful, and or abusive. Those who use these emotional patterns learned to be defensive in childhood based on finding themselves in positions of compromise, submission, or powerlessness. And as we go through these, which of these patterns are your favorites? Now, we all do all of them to some greater or lesser degree because none of us is perfect. But notice which one or ones you typically use when usually we don't get to that place until we're pretty stressed. At least somebody that's tuning in on my show tonight. And thank you for tuning in. So let's look at the one at the very top, the caretaker. Now notice in the middle of the circle, these people are placing themselves in the position of being a victim. And if I say I'm a victim, then I'm a victim of something out there, right? Which means I'm placing the finger of blame on something or somebody outside myself. That means that I immediately put myself in a place of being one down because I'm a victim of something or somebody else, which means I'm not capable, competent, or able in this situation. This, when people place themselves in the victim role, they have usually a frustration and a lack of control, feeling powerless and a victim with a lack of problem-solving abilities, and that equals anger and tantrums. So the first tantrum is depression. Isn't that interesting? Depression is a tantrum. Ew. There are a lot of people that don't want to look at that. They think they're depressed because the world is treating them wrongly or they're inadequate, whatever it is. But the truth is, they're just not handling themselves to move into the direction of the lifestyle that they need in order to be happy. So the caretaker, this is the person who tries to control others out there with pleasing, rescuing, being nice, or seduction, where they're looking to manipulate other people to get them to do what they want them to do with caretaking or pleasing, rather than having an adult and open and honest interaction, discussion, and problem solving about it. Now, yeah, we're gracious, we're kind, we're amenable, we're welcoming, but not manipulating in the sense of being nicey nice or obsequious, where kind of like they get syrupy and all over you. I know I was accused of this, and I know I used to do this. And I thought it was pretty cool to be a Pollyanna until I realized that I was being a Pollyanna all the time in inappropriate ways without realizing what I was doing. So this person represses their hostility or their anger, and usually our hostility or anger are in some way an inadequate response to solving whatever problem that we have. And that means that the caretaker's anger, they squash it down and deny it. And that means they're holding it inside. Now, the energy of anger wants to move. It wants us to move and take action and solve a problem. If you squash it down and keep it inside, you bring yourself to a halt, which means now you can't move. And that's where we get, in a certain view, depression. Now, please understand, I regularly, when I find people who are clinically depressed and they have just not got the energy to make the changes that they need to, I'm going to recommend some kind of antidepressant that works to help them get back on their feet, or work with them in whatever means that I can to help them move through and out of their depression. Sometimes it is genetic, so let me give you that caveat. But this person who is the caretaker, and you probably know somebody like this, they take on toxic shame and toxic guilt, where they're saying, well, it's all my fault, and I'm not good enough, and what can I do to take care of this? Poor me, that kind of thing. So that's the caretaker. Now let's flip over to the other page and see what that person needs to be doing instead. In the middle of the star, the yellow star, it says that these are people with emotional intelligence, and these are the 5 abilities for solving problems. They're honest, they're confident, they have good self-esteem. They're honest, they want to do the right thing. They're self-regulated, which means they have self-discipline and decide what they're going to do with discernment. They're reasonable. They're not black or white. They're not married to having something absolutely perfectly their way. We'll give and take. We'll be reasonable. Let's figure out what makes sense. And they're fair. They want to respect everybody equally. So let's just read this at the top. These are problem solvers. People with emotional intelligence want to make it right. And therefore they believe that it's possible to make it right. People who handle their problems and frustrations well have the ability to remain thoughtful rather than emotional, because problems are solved with intelligence. They can work alone, as a leader, or in partnership without allowing their feelings to get in the way. Partners in intelligent problem solving can create a resolution together, can agree respectfully to disagree, or can accept conditional agreement. They say, you may be right, or yeah, I understand what you mean. If I were in your shoes, I'd feel the same way. They have a sense of empathy and understanding, and they extend that to you. They also have the wisdom to know that disparate views can be enriching and can open the doors to innovative and useful awareness or options. They don't have to have everybody believe the way they do, think the way they do, or be on their team. They're respectful and interested in everybody and in what they can learn about differences. Those who have emotional intelligence don't feel like victims because they avoid trying to control others, but focus on what they can do themselves. Which of the 5 abilities do you believe you need or want or have developed? So now look at, instead of being the caretaker, we've got the helper. They're willing to serve and can create partnerships without compromising their own needs, sometimes through leadership. They're reasonable, responsible, respectful, honest, and they empower others to contribute to solutions by letting them help too, rather than needing to be in charge and needing to be the one that's making it happen or helping. So let's see, we've got a comment. What would you say to someone who has tried to remain calm even though I'm very unhappy in my marriage? It seems like my husband is just not interested in me anymore. He wants to spend more time with his friends than me. Well, my dear, there could be many components to that, right? I feel sad and angry at the same time. Yes, because you're sad because it sounds like you want a loving relationship with your husband, and angry because asking this question, you're feeling like a victim, like you're powerless, like you don't know what to do to reconnect with your husband. So, perfect time to ask me, how do I solve this problem? Well, first of all, what I would want to do is I would want to know what he wants, what he thinks is missing, what you used to have that you no longer have in your relationship with him. Now, I would assume that you have a sense of this yourself. And sometimes, when I teach marriage enrichment, the 2 top things to keep a couple together and feeling happy and loving with each other are novelty and arousal, which means something new all the time. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but novelty is you're learning something new, you come home from work, you're going to share something new, you're deciding that you're going to do something new, whether it's in one of your own hobbies or sports, or the 2 of you are going to do something as volunteer together, something new. And arousal means something that's not just kind of new, but it's got a little excitement attached to it, where it's fun. One of the easiest things about that is deciding you're going to help out somewhere, or you're going to plan a surprise party. There's a little arousal, little excitement in planning a surprise or building something for somebody. Let's see here. He seems happy. Happy with his life and friends, and especially his family, which I don't particularly like to be around. Oh, that's not an uncommon one. So, somehow or another, he grew up with his family, he likes his family, and he enjoys it. And there's something in you that's different from this family, and you haven't figured out how to enjoy yourself with them. So maybe that's one of the, one of the splits, one of the obstacles, one of the wedges, that's what I'm looking for, one of the wedges that's separating you. If he really likes his family, likes being with his family, if he really likes his friends, but you don't have a place there, you don't belong there, then in order to be with you, he'd have to give up all of his friends and all of his family. Now, if they were very unhealthy, I would want that to happen. But if he likes them and he's happy there, then you need to find a way to be happy with them too. I mean, not 100%. So what is it in yourself? Are you self-aware? Do you know your heart well enough that you can see what it is inside of you that doesn't feel good? If he is happy, I think he is not motivated to change anything. Well, yes, except for, dear, mostly our men aren't quite happy if their wives aren't happy. And he may have given up trying to make you happy. But most of our husbands really will do anything, pretty much anything, to get a smile, to get us smiling and happy. And you know that saying that all it takes is one happy woman to make a whole family happy. So, let's see. I don't want to hang around with his family just to be with him. I wish he would just like to be with me. Yeah, absolutely. If you have a beloved, you definitely want to spend time together. Now, if you've been married for a while, you don't want to do the same old, same old. You want to have novelty and arousal, which means if you want to spend time together, you need to have something quality that you do together. And I don't know, it could be anything depending on how old you are, where you live, what kinds of things you like. Maybe the two of you like to go camping alone together, or you play golf together, or you like to play bridge, or you like to go and listen to jazz. Something that the two of you really like, that's fun, that's got some energy attached to it. Otherwise, just being with you, just sitting with you, if you're not communicating about something that has novelty and arousal, then it's going to be, especially for an extrovert, a lot more fun to have novelty and arousal somewhere else. Does that make sense? Do you think I'm on track? Yeah, of course you wish. All of us who are married to somebody that we love, we want them to want to be with us. And just, hanging out is not good quality. So we want to be able to do something with each other. Jack and I, we had the best time on Saturday. We manned a booth for our favorite nonprofit, which is a chamber music organization called Voices of Change. We had the best time talking with people, telling them about Voices of Change, and that was full the entire day. Even though we were on our feet, we were working. It was a nonstop day of novelty and arousal, and that was, it was fun doing that, but it was also really fun doing it together. So that's the two of us spending time together, doing something, and then of course, having dinner together afterwards and talking about it and excited about the next season and such. So, yeah, you want to be able to be happy with his family, and that means figuring out how to solve the problem of what do you do when you're with them. I'll never forget being married to my first husband, where his mother was pretty much, I'd say 95% of the time negative and complaining. And so I just made it because I don't like being around negative, complaining people, but I had to be around her every weekend. So I know that she never knew quite why she didn't feel comfortable around me, because I was really the nicest person. But she would play what we call Ain't It Awful. That's one of the games that people play. Ain't It Awful? Bad, horrible. I would play, every time she said something where she said, isn't it awful that such and so, I would play Sunny Side Up. Oh yeah, however we could, well, if it's raining today, it's good for the garden. I would always reframe it and make it positive. Made me feel creative, even though, it was pretty boring. And then, I'd get her to teach me about the soap operas she watched. I found a way to live with care. Even though it was pretty boring being around her, I figured out how to be creative with it for years. Am I speaking to, am I hitting on any of the points that you think might be related to you and spending more time with your husband? I'm curious. Let me know. So the next one, the next defense pattern we've got here around to the right-hand side is the martyr. This is the person who whines, that says, poor me, they guilt other people, they complain, but they refuse mentoring, suggestions, or possible solutions. This is the person that whines and says, well, I never get, and you never, they never, whatever it is. And then you start talking about, well, what about this? No, I can't do that. Well, what about this? Well, I already tried that, doesn't work for me. Well, what about this? No, I don't have enough time, money, whatever it is. So we all know people like that. So instead of playing a martyr and whining, what we want, go to the next page, is to be a problem solver who is informed, which means instead of whining and refusing any positive energy, you want to solve the problem, which means you want to, instead of guilting people or whining, you want to listen, assemble data, get really intelligent, learn all sides, help to think things through logically, and define the problem intelligently, and then work together to find some possible solutions that are agreeable to all parties, and to create a strategy and a plan of action. Sounds very intelligent, making something happen, rather than just saying, poor me. I call that, actually, that's the kind of Eeyore character. Then we've got the next one around, which is the withdrawer who pouts. And this is the passive-aggressive person. They isolate, they shut down, they refuse to talk, they control by refusing to engage or to show up. They stonewall, and stonewall means that they just won't communicate and they shut down and go away. So that's a way of being manipulative, and that's the quiet way of being manipulative, where they refuse to engage, refuse to show up, and pout long enough to see if somebody's going to come and get them, or if somebody's going to feel sorry for them, whatever it is, rather than just being upfront and being communicative, the peacemaker, the person who calmly listens and withstands the intensity of engagement. Doesn't shut down and go away. Stand there right there and engage. Communicate fully with honest opinions and attentive listening. Participates without being defensive or judgmental, discusses problems, and helps formulate solutions. So see, instead of trying to come in the back door and refuse to talk to get your way or to get your revenge or whatever it is, you show up honestly, communicate, listen, and figure out what to do that's going to work. Then the fourth pattern for tantrums is I call this person the insulter, the person who insults other people and says it's all your fault and hates them. They're judgmental, they're criticizing, they harass other people with insults, either outwardly or in their own minds. They call names, they blame other people. If something comes their way, they deflect it and say, that's not my problem. And they can use accusations and put downs. So instead, what we want is to be responsible and respectful. Respectful of others and their beliefs, to be open-minded, confident, willing, accountable, honorable, not pointing the finger of blame and insulting others. Using information, patience, and wisdom to evaluate with fairness. If possible, to work with others to implement solutions. Now, you and I know that those people who are revengeful, judgmental, and critical, it takes a lot. to get them to this point. Many people who are those insulting sorts, they're very invested in blaming and making other people wrong and deflecting accountability, deflecting, taking responsibility for part of it. Because we have to take responsibility for a piece if we're going to stop playing victim. This person often has, in certain ways, low self-esteem or a sense of shame about themselves, and they don't want to really look at the problems they cause or their imperfections. They want to just keep making it out there, and then they don't have to look at how scared or inadequate or vulnerable they are inside, and they have, because they haven't grown emotionally to become emotionally intelligent and honest and confident. So does this make sense, guys? Are you relating it to yourself? Are you relating it to the people you know? And then, of course, the last one, this is the one that we typically think of when we talk about tantrums. The person who yells and screams and breaks things or hurts people, the people who is the rager, and who is a dominator. They blame and control through intimidation. They can be a coercive bully or tyrant. They control through threats. They use force, drama, and rage to manipulate other people. So that person has a lot of energy. And, you know, it's my hope, let's take that energy and use it for something constructive. So an emotionally intelligent person becomes, rather than raging and just spewing their anger out willy-nilly with sound and thunder that does nothing, they become decisive. They become an achiever. They start to see the big picture, and they take leadership, and they're self-regulated with calm and energetic willingness to take action. They can bring together and facilitate a team or partnership in choosing the best options for everyone. They plan and implement constructive action because they're decisive and they're so well informed. The person that throws a tantrum with rage usually has a lot of assertive or aggressive energy. And what my hope is that all of that energy is used to make something happen in the world that's creative and positive. So there you have it, the 5 abilities for problem solving and the 5 ways that people throw tantrums with their controlling defense patterns. Any questions about that? Does that hang together for you? Does it make sense? Is it helpful? Let me know, you guys. And thanks. I can see on my screen that I have viewers, and I really appreciate that. Now, the next page in your handout, page number 5, this has to do with those people who play victim. See this? I call this my pendulum model. And my pendulum model, that's the pendulum of emotional intelligence, and that pendulum swings away from emotional intelligence in 2 ways. So what's in the middle is someone who is balanced and healthy, has good emotional intelligence, and is pretty integrated person. So they're fearless and adventurous. They're content, you know, that they're not going to take risks that are magical, but they're willing to try new things out. They're content. They have a sense of happiness inside. They accept the world as it is. They can surrender to whatever it is out there that people really need. They don't try to control it. They're responsible. They have discernment and wisdom, which means they're in touch with how to make a good decision and how to be appropriate in response to different people, different situations. They're interdependent, which means they get along with other people. They know how to handle themselves with other people. They're not scared of it. They're not controlling. They're not angry. They don't have that attitude that they don't like anybody. They can be interdependent and socially capable with enjoyment. They have role flexibility, which means, yep, they can take care of the little kids. They can also show up at a board meeting. They know how to get a job done when they're working with a team. They also know how to go out there by themselves, working alone or as a consultant or as a teacher to get it done all by themselves. Their attitude, their kind of, how do I say, the internal weather vane, so to speak, is, okay, let's learn and let's solve the problem. Always interested in more, always curious, wanting to learn, wanting to know, or wanting to know how to do it better. And looking for the things that need to be improved and wanting to improve it or solve the problem. It's like a pursuit of excellence where you're always going in the direction of excellence because it's never possible to reach it completely. It's about growth, change, improvement. So they stay in the adult ego state, so to speak, where they coordinate the head, the heart, and the soul. Their emotion is they have an appropriate experience and expression of feelings, emotions, from joy through pain. And they are very active. They don't just sit or they don't just flail around. They are active and they say, okay, let's create, let's produce, let's serve. When they're inactive, they just say, let's rest, let's take a break, let's relax, let's play. So that's my quick little introduction, little overview for a pretty healthy person, an emotionally intelligent person. Still going? Yes. Damn, I guess not. Guess not what? Still going where? I'm just wondering. Who is that? Don't know. I'm wondering if somebody lost me. I think you guys are hearing. I'm seeing the message. At any rate, now let's look at the user taker and pleaser giver. So the user taker, pleaser giver. The user taker is on one side of the pendulum, and notice that this is the dominating side. And on the other side is the pleaser giver, which is the doormat side. I see and hear you okay. Thank you. That other person must have timed out somehow. So think about which side of the pendulum you've been on. We usually have a favorite one. Some people do both of them, but usually we have a favorite one. And this is about that enmeshed in relationships, where the user taker controls through intimidation. They say, 824. No, it's not over for tonight. Still going. Strange. So the user taker, there's something that goes on, something the matter. The user taker usually says, okay, this isn't my fault. I don't know what happened here, but you better take care of it, or if you don't take care of it, there will be consequences to pay, and I will make sure to deliver those consequences, and you better do what I say, when I say, how I say. I'm going to dominate, control, and I am the victim here because it's your problem. Is that familiar to you? If you know anybody like that. So that person is a dominator, and they abuse through trying to be aggressive and intimidate people. They stay in the head, the parent, and the intellect, where they're trying to dominate and treat other people so that they will be less powerful. Okay. So this is a position of blame. Now, let's go over to the other side, to the pleaser giver. And the pleaser giver, this person, they try to control rather than through domination, manipulation. So, for example, they'll say, there's something wrong. Well, tell me what I did. I know I'm the guilty person. I know it's all my fault. And please just, I mean, even if I didn't, if it wasn't my fault, just tell me what to do so that you don't get mad at me. Because obviously this person is trying to manipulate to protect themselves from other people's domination, intimidation, and anger. So that's, I'll be your doormat, but I'm the guilty person. I'll take all the guilt, whatever you want me to do. So notice this person is the opposite of the user-taker. They play the victim to the other person's need. Don't take care of themselves and try to do whatever they can to manipulate other people by being obedient to them rather than to themselves. So they come usually out of the poor me, whining martyr role. Neither one of these user-taker, pleaser-giver is very attractive, is it? So any comments, any questions? Do you see, if you play the user-taker, that what you want is the pleaser-giver? Because I want, the user-taker says, I want what I want when I want it. And an adult says, well, let's talk about that. I'm not willing to compromise myself in my life, but I'm sure interested in solving the problem. No, but I want what I want when I want it. And then the adult was probably going to extricate themselves as wisely as they can. So the dominator wants somebody that will do what they say, what they tell them to do, which right then brings in the pleaser that says, oh, you want me to do it? Of course I'll do it. You know, whatever you want. And then we get a relationship. Instead of being two adults in partnership walking through life, we've got a couple where they are enmeshed, where they are in this relationship because one wants to take and one is willing to give. Oh, good. You guys are figuring this out. That's great. Tell me, thank you, dear. Tell me, does this make sense to you about the pleaser-giver, user-taker? Do you know anybody in this kind of relationship where one controls the other with domination and the other one controls the other one with doing whatever they say? Well, what I want is for people to behave like two adults rather than a parent that controls the child. This is a lot of info. Yes! That's exactly my goal, dear. I'm having trouble knowing which of your ideas I should try first. Well, and you know, sometimes it's not obvious what you should try first. But this is now in the area of emotional intelligence where you think about knowing yourself, knowing your husband and or your relationship and what it is that's missing, what it is that's causing you maybe to be bored or causing you to have a wedge between you. And you know, when I get to the bottom line of things like that, I usually want to know the love languages of the people involved or the favorite things that you're really attached to and like to do. You know, like one of the things, my sister is just a stunning, she's fabulous with her hands. She can upholster anything, she can sew anything, she's a musician. And so if I were her husband and I wanted to connect with her, I would want to be doing something with my creative like that. And of course, what does her husband do? They both play in a band. So that's one of the ways that they connect. They also connect, they are responsible for putting up the ham radio tower in their little mountain community. And also for starting the little radio station. They did that as a team. So they know what they have in common, and then they use it to serve the world. Okay, That's just exactly. I don't know what the wedge between us is. Okay, I see. What if you're one of those, but you're not sure which? So neither, both. Yeah, we can be both. And what you want to do immediately is stop it, of course. And that means you're going to have to be honest. And being honest is sometimes feels very difficult, feels vulnerable, and you got to stand up strong for yourself. So that leads us right into the segue for the piece that we're looking at today, which is motivation. Motivating yourself. So I've been talking about these ways that we have for throwing tantrums or managing ourselves. So what we want to do is motivate ourselves to do the constructive things. Motivation, let me get over here to that part because I don't want to miss anything. There are 4 large categories in the area of motivation. Yes, I'm suggesting that you try to find things in common. If you want a great relationship, you want to find something that the two of you both love, and you do it together. You know, it's like helping for Habitat for Humanity together. Both of you rolling up your sleeves with tool belts, or helping little kids that are having a hard time learning to read in English. Anything. There are 1,000 ways that as couples we can make a difference in the world. And oftentimes making a difference or being creative or being on some kind of a team brings us together. I do have a passion list, and I use this more often than not. And it's a piece of homework that I give people. So email me for my passion list. It's 8 pages long, single-spaced, which means it's a huge list of endeavors that people really enjoy in the world. You know, one of the other places that I love to find great endeavors for ideas for novelty and arousal, would you believe it? The Boy Scout badges. Just go to the Boy Scouts of America website and look at all their badges. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. That's really cool. That's one of the ways to kind of dip into things, because the Boy Scouts have had hundreds of caring, intelligent people figure out what's good for kids to know about and what's good for us to know about, of course. So motivation, motivating yourself, it's taking action. Now some of us, and this is one of my particular things that I'm always having to work on, because obviously I'm mostly in communication, in my head, my thought process, in my heart, and I need to be taking action, and I'm not as good at it as I'd like to be. So motivating yourself to move, to take action, to express yourself. So I'm expressing myself here, but you know that I'm way better at talking than I am at working out, right? Can I become an Eagle Scout in love? Oh, isn't that a cool thing, you guys? Yes, you can become an Eagle Scout in love. That sounds like a book. That sounds like a great book title, you know? Absolutely. Which is why I have this program called Designer Marriage, to be a designer of your marriage, and why I want to facilitate relationship cruises where we take our love with each other into very creative and interesting places. Thanks. I'm trying to come up with cool ideas all the time because I'm invested in this. I want novelty and arousal for myself and for me and Jack and for my life and my work. Okay, so motivation is 4 things. First of all, taking action. Making sure that you take action. Courage, which is doing the right thing. You know, when we get tempted to go into one of those tantrums, like to refuse to talk, or to just be grouchy and hateful and we've got to be courageous enough to do the right thing, which is apologize, forgive, speak kindly, go past whatever internal barrier you've got. So motivation to act and courage to do the right thing, and then forbearance. Forbearance means forbearing, holding, standing tall even in the face of some kind of press. Somebody threatening you, yelling at you, somebody having a differing opinion about something than you, and not backing down. Staying true to yourself and just staying with it. Standing tall, and I love that affirmation. I stand straight and tall inside myself, and nothing can disturb the calm of my soul. That's forbearance, the virtue of forbearance, where you stand straight and tall and you forbear pressure from the outside world and stay true to yourself and what you really believe in. Forbearance, tough. Yes, that's why it's a virtue. Emotionally intelligent people cultivate virtue. Okay, and the fourth one, encouraged. Being encouraged. And part of that is, that's quite a complex topic. It's being encouraged inside of yourself, to feel confident in yourself, to be encouraged about, yes, we can do this. So I'm going to go back to the quiz that we had last week. So the motivator elements are life pressures. Are you good with daily stressors? Are you good with the strains and the difficulties where you have to be forbearant and patient with them? That's a part of motivating yourself not to take action, but to stand true, to stand tall, to forbear. Motivate yourself with intentionality, where you stay focused on what's important to you, and you have an intention and you move to your intention, not like a tumbleweed or in response to somebody else's goals or somebody else's pressuring, but you stay intentional, active, focused. You stay with your own constructive motives and you continue to advance yourself. So that's intentionality, not just kind of loosey-goosey, not trying to get control and domination and power, but staying with your intention to be creative and constructive. Resilience, bouncing back, even when you're set back, that you don't give up hope, even when you have a failure, that you know that, past the cloud there's a silver lining. Even though something has devastated you, you have faith that there's something better that you can achieve or get to or is in store for you. That sense of resilience where you can also step out of the fast lane and just take a break. So you manage your stress, you're resilient by taking a break so that you come back in with full energy. Another component of motivation is I love this one, constructive discontent, which means when you're discontent, you don't throw a tantrum, you don't get pissed off, you don't whine, you get constructive with your discontent and saying, oh, this isn't quite enough, this isn't all right, what can I do? Which is being constructive with your discontent and knowing your discontent, accepting it. It's like when I teach couples to handle differences. A complaint with a request for change, which says constructive discontent. I have a complaint, and I've got an idea for what we can do instead. When you've got discontent, sometimes it takes courage because somebody else is discontented. And that means you focus on the words and not the person, on solutions. So instead of getting involved emotionally with a back and forth or manipulative or tantrum or whatever it is, focus on what it is that they are wanting to communicate and stay forbearant. Stay with the discontent so that you can figure out what to do. Faith and happiness on the way in the face of depressing now. Also tough. Yes, this is emotional intelligence is for adults, and it's difficult. This is grad school in terms of refining ourselves and maturing ourselves to the form of graceful wisdom. Absolutely. You're getting it. You see what I see. I love this because it does ask the best of us. It asks us to find things in ourselves that we forgot we had or didn't know to develop. Okay, personal power, another part of motivation. Learn to let go. Personal power. First thing that comes to mind doesn't sound like letting go, but personal power means you can let go because you're powerful enough to just be with whatever it is and not have to be in control. Rehearse your performances, to be powerful says, let me think about what I want to do. Let me think about how I want to couch this, what's going to be most effective, most amenable, approachable, attractive, and be self-disciplined, where you make wise choices and you decide what's going to be most effective based on not what you're afraid of, not what you want to control, not how you're going to get power over, but power over yourself, which means the power to be self-disciplined and choose with wisdom. When is it no longer worth it? I'm talking years of forbearance. I'm thinking maybe it's time to move on. In your marriage? That's a possibility. However, one of the things that I have as a value is that if you are interested in moving on away from a relationship, away from a marriage, before you do that, do your work. And that means, some months of counseling to make sure you take it all apart, look at it, know exactly what's working and what's not working, know exactly what your part of this is, because then you know what part to build in yourself and how to handle yourself better in the future. So maybe it is time to move on. However, don't just walk away without doing your work, dear. I don't want you to have any regrets, and I want you to get the juice out of this. All right, the last part, we're down to the wire here. The last part is, oh, you're very welcome, dear, is your quality of life and your optimal performance. Because when you have this degree of ability to motivate yourself, you are successful because you know how to handle yourself well, all the things that are your personal best. You're strong. And you have a quality of life. You have the ability to create relationships with people that are really quality. You create circumstances in your life that relate to what you really care about rather than trying to manipulate or control. And your opportunities are the ones that you want. So, emotional intelligence at the grad school level today. Motivation. Didn't think about motivation that way before, did you? Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in with me tonight. And dear ones, thank you so much for your questions and your comments. And if you want more personal mentoring from me, just give me a phone call. Just give me a call on the phone, and I'm happy to chat with you to see what might be a good direction for you personally. So thank you for tuning into the Red Room tonight, everyone. I really appreciate your company, your questions, your comments, and your mutual dedication to excellence. And I'll see you the same time again next week for part 3 of emotional intelligence, and that's relationships and connecting with others. Good night, everyone, from the Red Room. You are dear, you are dears. Thank you, dear hearts.